The courtroom froze the moment the mayor's son shouted, "You can't arrest me!" A roar soaked in privilege and untouchable confidence. But the judge didn't even blink. She reached for a sealed folder no one had noticed before, and suddenly the entire room shifted. Cameras tightened. Spectators leaned forward. And the mayor's son, his smirk dissolved as the judge opened the file, exposing something that drained every drop of color from his face. Because what was inside wasn't just evidence. It was the one truth he never thought would surface. But before we jump in, tell me, where are you watching from? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The mayor's son froze as Judge Judy lifted the sealed red-ribboned folder. For the first time since he swaggered into the courtroom, something flickered behind his smirk. Fear. The air in the courtroom felt charged, as if the fluorescent lights themselves were holding their breath. The camera eased into a close-up on Evan Hollis, 23. Stylish, smug, and already bored with the proceedings. He reclined in his chair as though attending a brunch reservation, rather than facing civil damages. His foot tapped in rehearsed impatience, a rhythmic reminder to everyone present. I don't belong here. I'm above this. Judge Judy watched him from the bench with a level, unblinking stare, the type that stripped pretense from even the most confident defendants. She didn't speak immediately. She let the silence work on him, tightening around his shoulders like an invisible grip. Papers rustled somewhere behind the gallery, a whisper of unease moving through the spectators. Across the aisle sat Marisol Reyes, a soft-spoken cafe owner whose warm eyes carried months of sleepless nights. She clutched a folder of her own thin, compared to the judge's, but its contents were her truth: invoices, repair quotes, and the shaky security photos of Evan's car, smashed into the corner of her storefront. Evan tossed a glance her way, a smirk tugging at his lips. "She's exaggerating," he muttered loud enough for half the courtroom to hear. It was barely a tap. Judge Judy snapped her attention to him. "Mr. Hollis, the only thing being tapped here is my patience." A low ripple of laughter passed through the gallery, quickly silenced by the bailiff's stern look. Evan's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being the punchline. He was used to being untouchable. But Judy didn't give him time to recover. She reached forward, deliberately, methodically, and pulled the sealed folder into the light. The camera shifted to a dramatic overhead shot as the red ribbon slid across the wood like a warning flare. "Mr. Hollis," Judy said, voice steady as stone, "approach the bench." Evan blinked. This wasn't in his script. He stood slowly, confusion shading into irritation, then into something darker as he noticed Marisol watching, quiet, steady, brave. His steps echoed on the polished floor, each louder than the last. "You may be wondering," Judy continued, "why a sealed file is present in a simple civil dispute." He swallowed. "Yeah, I'm wondering." He swallowed, her eyebrow lifted. "Good. That means you're finally paying attention." The spectators leaned in, cameras tightened, even Marisol's breath hitched. "This file," Judy said, tapping it once, firmly, "contains information relevant to your credibility and your history of conduct in this courtroom's jurisdiction." Evan's smirk collapsed, completely not shattered, not broken, just gone, as if it had been wiped off his face by an unseen hand. "What's in it?" he asked, voice smaller now. Judy's expression didn't change. "Shall we open it?" The judge's fingers curled beneath the ribbon, slow, intentional, while Evan stood frozen in front of the bench, realizing for the first time in his life that he might not walk out of a room still in control. The moment Evan stepped back from the bench, when his confidence flickered, Judge Judy wasn't impressed by titles, reputations, or political bloodlines, and that realization hit him harder than any accusation Marisol could make. The gavel hadn't moved, yet the entire room felt as though the judge had struck it already. A slow, simmering tension settled over the courtroom, the kind that warned everyone present that the tone had officially changed. The camera widened, capturing the contrast between Evan's unraveling bravado and Judy's unwavering composure. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses with the precision of a surgeon preparing for the first incision. Before we proceed, she said, we need to establish expectations. In this courtroom, Mr. Hollis, you are not the mayor's son. You're a defendant. The words sliced cleanly through the space between them. The spectators murmured. Evan stiffened. He gave a strained laugh, as if attempting to soften the sting. I understand, Your Honor. I'm just not used to this kind of setup. Judy's eyes narrowed. That much is painfully obvious. A heavy beat of silence followed, punctuated by the tapping of the stenographer's keys, each keystroke capturing Evan's fall from grace in real time. Marisol sat quietly, hands clasped atop her thin stack of evidence. Her café-bruised fingers traced the edges of her invoices as though grounding herself. She hadn't asked for a spectacle. She certainly hadn't asked to be pitted against the son of the city's most influential figure. Yet here she was, holding her breath as Judy turned to her. Ms. Reyes, the judge said gently, please present your account of the damages. Marisol rose slowly, the camera pushing into a close-up of her trembling hands. But when she spoke, her voice was steady, soft, but undeniably sure. Your Honor, he didn't just hit my storefront. He destroyed months of my savings. And when I asked him to pay for the repairs, he laughed. He told me the city would cover it. Except, it never did. Judy nodded, absorbing every word. And you believe Mr. Hollis acted with disregard for your property? And, Marisol swallowed. He acted like I didn't matter, Evan scoffed loudly. Oh, come on. People exaggerate when they want money. The audience reacted audibly. Judy lifted a single finger, silencing the room instantly. Mr. Hollis, she said, voice razor-edged, your arrogance is leaking onto the floor. Please mop it up. He blinked. I what? Don't make me repeat myself. The flush on Evan's cheeks deepened. Gone was the casual entitlement he wore like a designer accessory. Now, he looked like someone realizing the rules he'd built his life around didn't apply here. Now, Judy continued, turning back to Marisol. Let's discuss the night of the incident. Miss Reyes, what were Mr. Hollis's actions before and after the collision? Marisol opened her mouth to speak, but Judy suddenly lifted her hand. No, she said. Let's start with his version first. Evan straightened, uneasy. My version? Yes, where were you the night before the crash? The room tightened like a drawn bowstring. Evan froze, caught off guard, unprepared, and visibly searching for the right lie or the closest truth. Judge Judy leaned in, eyes locked on him. Consider your answer carefully, Mr. Hollis, because the next witness is already waiting. Evan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Judge Judy's question hung in the air like a trap he'd walked into without noticing. The courtroom shifted in energy, subtle at first, like the lowering of lights before a stage play changes scenes. Evan Hollis stood rigid, his hands clasped behind him in a forced imitation of confidence. But the camera picked up the truth. The faint twitch at the corner of his jaw, the shallow rise of his chest, the hesitation that betrayed him far louder than any words could. Judy waited. She didn't rush him. She didn't need to. Silence was her sharpest tool, and she wielded it with the precision of a veteran surgeon. Well, she asked finally, you do remember where you were, don't you? Ooh. A bead of sweat slipped from Evan's temple. I told you already. I was at home, sleeping. The gallery reacted with a soft ripple of doubt. Judy's eyebrow rose ever so slightly. Interesting, because your recorded statement claims you were out with friends. Evan swallowed hard. Both. I mean, I was out. But then I went home. Late. The judge flipped through a set of papers with an exaggerated calm, the pages whispering like warnings. Your estimated return time was around midnight, correct? He nodded. Judy held up a printed still from surveillance footage. Then why, Mr. Hollis, does your vehicle appear damaged at 10:27 de la tarde, nearly 2 hours earlier than your timeline? Evan froze. Marisol's breath hitched. The courtroom leaned in like a single body, drawn toward the unfolding truth. I don't know. he whispered. Judy's voice sharpened. You expect this court to believe you didn't notice significant damage to your own vehicle? He blinked rapidly, searching for footing, his confidence draining like sand through fingers. It must have happened earlier. Someone must have hit me. The judge tilted her head slightly, as if examining a specimen under glass. And you didn't report it? No. Did you photograph it? No. Did you tell anyone? His silence answered for him. Marisol looked down, her hands tightening on the folder resting on her lap. This wasn't just about a ruined storefront anymore. This was about the truth she had carried alone. Finally cracking open, Judy leaned back, folding her hands. Mr. Hollis, you've been given every opportunity to clarify your timeline, yet your story continues to shift like wet cement. The court requires stability, something factual. Evan's eyes darted between his lawyer, the judge, and the gallery, searching desperately for an ally, a lifeline, a way to drag himself back onto stable ground. None appeared. Instead, Judy raised a hand toward the bailiff. Please, bring in our next witness. Evan's head whipped around. Next witness? Yes, Judy replied, her tone unwavering. The one who saw your car before the collision with Ms. Reyes' storefront. The one who serviced it. The one with no political ties. The bailiff moved toward the side door. Evan's composure shattered, panic flashing in his eyes. Wait, who exactly are you bringing in? Judge Judy's gaze cut clean through him. The mechanic from the downtown garage. The door creaked open, heavy work boots echoing on the polished floor, as the unknown witness stepped into view, carrying a small evidence bag that glinted beneath the courtroom lights. The mechanic stepped into the courtroom with the calm weight of a man who had nothing to lose, but carried something that could cost Evan everything. The sound of his boots echoed across the glossy floor, each step heavy, deliberate. The camera panned upward slowly, revealing a middle-aged man with oil-stained hands and a denim jacket worn thin at the elbows. He carried a small plastic evidence bag that caught the fluorescent light every few steps, flashing like a signal flare. Evan shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his codger. This wasn't some political rival, some angry business owner, or a social media critic his father could silence. This was a man who lived in grease and truth, two things that don't wash off easily. State your name for the record, Judge Judy said. Derek Cole, he replied, voice steady. Lead mechanic at Riverside Auto, and your reason for being here today. Derek held up the evidence bag. Inside was a bent metal bracket with chipped paint. This came off Mr. Hollis's car, the night he brought it in. A hush rippled through the gallery. Evan's throat tightened. That doesn't mean anything, he spat, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Judy folded her hands. Mr. Cole, please explain. Derek nodded. Sure thing, Your Honor. On the evening in question, this young man, he pointed at Evan without an ounce of hesitation, showed up at the shop past closing hours. Said he needed the front bumper fixed quietly. Judy echoed. Yes, ma'am. And fast. He was sweating, pacing, looking over his shoulder like someone was chasing him. Evan snapped. That's a lie. The bailiff took a deliberate step forward, shutting him down with sheer presence. Judy didn't even flinch. You will wait your turn, Mr. Hollis, Derek continued, undeterred. He wouldn't say what he hit, just that he couldn't have it on record. And when I told him it'd take time, he shoved cash at me, $200 to hurry it up. More murmurs. The cameras zoomed in on Evan's paling face. Judy leaned forward. Mr. Cole, did Mr. Hollis appear intoxicated? Injured? Panicked? Panicked, Derek said firmly, like someone who knew he'd messed up bad. Evan's mouth opened, then closed, because what defense could he possibly shape from the unraveling threads of his lies? Derek pulled out the receipt. Here's the paperwork. He signed it. Judy examined the signature, her expression unreadable but her silence deafening. Evan could feel the courtroom closing in, walls tightening, truth cornering him from angles he didn't see coming. His breaths came shallow, quick, uneven. "Mr. Cole," Judy said, "is it your professional opinion that the damage on this bracket matches the damage sustained at Miss Reyes's storefront?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "Same height, same angle, same paint transfer." The gallery exhaled in one collective gasp. Marisol pressed a hand to her chest, validation washing over her like a wave she'd waited months to feel. Judy lifted the sealed red folder again, laying it next to the mechanic's evidence. "Mr. Hollis," she said, voice low but lethal, "your story doesn't just have holes, it has highways." Evan's breathing stuttered. Judge Judy tapped the sealed folder once. "And unfortunately for you, this file contains something even more revealing than Mr. Cole's testimony." The room leaned in. Judy slipped her finger beneath the ribbon. "Let's open it." The red ribbon slid free, falling across the judge's bench like a dropped vein of tension. Evan's breath hitched. Whatever lived in that folder, he knew it had teeth. Judge Judy unfolded the flaps with a deliberate slowness that made the entire courtroom lean forward. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim in anticipation, casting a narrow spotlight on the documents inside. Papers, neatly clipped. Tabs marked in red. Headings printed in bold. The camera pushed in tight on Evan's face. The twitching jaw. The widening eyes. The faint shake in his fingers. His lawyer tried to whisper something, but Evan lifted a hand sharply, motioning him to stop. He wanted to hear this himself. Or maybe he feared what silence would amplify. Judy pulled out the first document and held it up at eye level. "For the record," she said, "this file was submitted anonymously, verified by producers, confirmed through municipal archives, and most importantly, legally admissibly." Evan's voice cracked. "Admissible? For what? For what?" Judy didn't look at him. "Not yet. This," she continued, sliding the paper onto the bench, "is an internal incident report from 4 years ago. It describes a reckless driving event involving your vehicle and resulting property damage." The gallery murmured. Marisol stiffened. Evan blinked rapidly, confusion pulling at the corners of his expression. "That was dismissed," he stammered. "It was nothing. A misunderstanding." Judy lifted the next sheet. "Interesting." She tapped each paper like a judge counting sins. 1, 2, 3. The sound echoed. Evan stumbled back a half step, gripping the defense table. "Those were sealed. They're not supposed to. I mean, someone must have leaked." "They weren't sealed, Mr. Hollis," Judy cut in, her voice dry as sandpaper. "They were buried, and poorly." The camera caught a bead of sweat trailing down his cheek. "These reports," Judy continued, holding up the stack, "detail a consistent pattern. Collisions, property damage, evasion of responsibility, and quiet interventions from individuals connected to your father's office." She set the papers down with a dull thud. Evan's chest rose and fell too fast. I wasn't, those weren't my fault." Marisol swallowed, her eyes glistening. She wasn't surprised. She was heartbroken. Judy reached deeper into the folder. "And this," she said, withdrawing a final envelope, "might explain why you believed you could treat Ms. Reyes's property the same way." The envelope's seal glimmered beneath the courtroom lights. Evan took a step forward involuntarily. "What is that?" "A complaint," Judy said softly. "Filed by someone who once considered you a friend." Evan's face drained. "A friend?" Judy nodded. "Someone who claimed you used your influence to intimidate them. Someone who alleged vandalism and threats." A ripple of shock swept across the gallery. Evan's denial burst out too quickly. "They were lying. They were angry. That wasn't it. Wasn't serious." Judy's gaze was ice. "The complaint was never processed. It was redirected, covered, pushed aside just like the others." Evan grasped the edge of the defense table as if it might anchor him, but nothing in the room could keep him steady. "Which leads us," Judy said, sliding the envelope forward, "to the witness who authored this complaint." Evan's knees nearly buckled. Judy turned to the bailiff. Bring them in. The courtroom door opened with a low creak, revealing a silhouette Evan clearly recognized and clearly feared. The courtroom door clicked shut behind the incoming witness, and Evan's face went utterly still, as if someone had pressed pause on him while the rest of the world kept breathing. A young man stepped forward, shoulders tense, eyes lowered. His suit jacket was slightly wrinkled, the kind worn by someone who tried hard to look composed but hadn't slept well in weeks. The camera lingered on his hands. They trembled, but not from fear of the court. No, this was the tremble of someone who had held a truth too long and was finally releasing it. Judge Judy softened her tone, not gentle but measured. "State your name for the record." "Liam Hayes," he said quietly. The murmur that rippled through the gallery wasn't just curiosity, it was recognition. People in the crowd whispered, nudged, gestured. Liam Hayes, locale volunteer coordinator, community favorite, the kind of man whose reputation didn't circle privilege but effort. Evan looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "Liam," Judge Judy continued, "you filed this complaint against Mr. Hollis 2 years ago?" He nodded, swallowing. "Yes, Your Honor, but it never went anywhere." Judy held up the envelope. It reached a desk, and then it vanished. Liam's eyes flicked to Evan. A mixture of regret and betrayal simmered there, something deeply personal. Judge Judy guided him. "Please tell the court what happened." Liam exhaled, slow and steady, gathering courage like oxygen. "I was friends with Evan. We grew up together. Same schools. Same friend circles." He paused. "But I didn't have the same privilege." The camera cut to Evan, stiff, jaw locked. "One night," Liam continued, "Evan got into a fight outside a bar. Not physical, verbal. Loud. Ugly. He started threatening a guy who bumped into him. Said he would ruin him. Said he owned this city." Judy raised an eyebrow toward Evan. He avoided her gaze. "When I tried to pull him away," Liam said, voice tightening, "he turned on me. Said the only reason I had a job was because his father liked me. Said if I didn't stay in line, he'd make a call, and I'd be out by morning." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Marisol felt her stomach twist. This was the pattern she feared she had imagined. But no. Here it was, spoken aloud. Evan suddenly burst forward. "It was a joke," he shouted. "You knew I didn't mean that." Liam flinched. "But you did mean it. And you kept meaning it. Every time you needed something covered up. Every time you needed someone to take blame for you. You used your father's name like a weapon." The courtroom air thickened. "And the vandalism?" Judy prompted. Liam swallowed hard. "A week after I told him I wanted distance, someone keyed my car. Scratched the word traitor across the side." Evan laughed when he saw it. He said, he hesitated. Judy's tone sharpened. "What did he say?" Liam's eyes locked onto Evan's. "He said, 'Next time, it'll be worse.'" The sound of those words lingered, heavy and echoing. Evan's face drained of color. "This incident," Judy said, tapping the complaint, "is the only one that survived the political pressure, the only one that wasn't erased." The gallery leaned forward. Evan's breath shook. Judy slid the complaint across the bench toward him. "Tell me, Mr. Hollis, if this is how you treat your friends, what chance did Miss Rajas ever have?" Liam's confession hung in the air like a bruise, fresh, painful, and impossible to ignore. Evan stood frozen, the weight of old secrets finally pulling at the seams of his composure. The courtroom felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Liam remained on the witness stand, his breathing unsteady, but his posture stronger than before. He had spent years swallowing his truth. Now it poured from him with the force of something long overdue. Judge Judy folded her hands. "Mr. Hayes," she said gently, "you mentioned this wasn't an isolated comment. Explain what you meant." Liam nodded slowly. Evan used intimidation the way other people use apologies, casually, reflexively. If he wanted a problem gone, it disappeared. If he wanted someone quiet, they stayed quiet. And if someone pushed back, he inhaled shakily. There were consequences. Evan finally snapped out of his stupor. Liam, stop. You're making it sound like I'm some monster. The judge cut in, voice sharp. Mr. Hollis, interrupt again, and I will remove you from your own hearing. The gallery's tension spiked. Cameras zoomed tighter on Evan's stricken face. Liam continued, eyes softening with something almost like grief. I didn't come forward back then because I was scared. Not of Evan, not really. He paused. I was scared because I knew his father could erase me with a phone call, and Evan knew that. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Anger, empathy, recognition of quiet corruption. Evan shook his head frantically. That's not true. I wouldn't have, Liam. You know, I wouldn't have ruined your life. Liam looked up, finally meeting his eyes with a devastating calm. But you threatened to. The silence that followed was suffocating. For a moment, Evan wasn't the mayor's son. He was just a frightened young man, finally seeing the damage he'd caused. His voice cracked when he spoke. I was drunk. I was stupid. I didn't mean it. Judy leaned forward. Intent does not erase impact. Mr. Hayes, continue. Liam nodded. After the complaint vanished, I told myself to let it go. I convinced myself it wasn't worth fighting the machine behind him. But then I heard about Marisol's cafe. His voice wavered, and the way Evan brushed it off like he always did. Marisol's eyes softened. She saw not weakness, but the courage of someone who finally refused to stay silent. I knew, Liam whispered, that if I didn't speak now, he'd keep hurting people, and I couldn't carry that anymore. The courtroom held its breath. Evan stared at him in disbelief, as if he couldn't understand why loyalty no longer shielded him. You were my friend. Liam closed his eyes briefly. I was. But friends, don't let friends become villains. And Judy absorbed that line like a verdict already half-written. She turned slowly toward Evan, her gaze slicing through the last of his collapsing defenses. Mr. Hollis, your friend has testified to a pattern of intimidation, entitlement, and abuse of influence. This is no longer about an accident. It's about character. Evan opened his mouth, then shut it. No words forming. Judy turned to Marisol. Miss Reyes, after hearing all this, do you still wish to proceed with your testimony? Marisol rose slowly, eyes steady, voice trembling with purpose. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Marisol rose from her seat with a quiet steadiness, the kind that comes not from confidence, but from surviving someone's carelessness for far too long. The courtroom fell into a hush as she stepped forward. Her steps were slow, almost delicate, but the camera captured the truth. Beneath them, the determined tremble in her fingers, the exhaustion in her shoulders, the months of fear pressed into the tight line of her jaw. She didn't need to command the room. Her silence did that for her. Judge Judy met her with a softened expression, not pity, but respect. Ms. Reyes, she said, you may begin. Marisol inhaled, the breath shaky but deep, the kind a person takes before lifting something heavy. Your Honor, I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to run my cafe. I wanted to make something small but mine. She forced a thin, tired smile. But Evan didn't see it that way. The camera tightened on Evan, his brows knitting, the defensiveness rising again. But weaker this time, as though even he knew pushback would only sink him deeper. Marisol continued. The night he crashed into my storefront, I heard the impact from inside. It was loud, like something breaking that shouldn't break. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. When I ran out, Evan was laughing. Laughing, Your Honor. With his friends. Like it was a joke. Gasps whispered through the gallery. Evan shifted, guilt flickering across his face like a shadow that moved too fast to be denied. When I asked him to stay so we could file a report, he rolled his eyes at me, told me the city would take care of it. She swallowed. But the city didn't. No one did. Judy nodded slowly, encouraging her forward. The next day, Marisol said, I posted photos on my cafe's page to update customers. I didn't name him. I didn't accuse him. I just shared what happened. Her eyes darkened. That same night, Someone banged on my windows at midnight. Hard, long, like a warning. Evan flinched. I didn't see who it was, Marisol admitted. But the next morning, I found a note slipped under the door. She reached into her folder and handed it to the bailiff. It said, "Drop it." The courtroom reacted with a swell of murmurs. Judy examined the note typed, unsigned, but unmistakably threatening. "Did you report this?" Judy asked. Marisol shook her head. "No. I was scared they wouldn't believe me. Scared they'd protect him. Scared they'd say I was overreacting." Her voice cracked, just slightly. "Everyone knows who his father is." She looked at Evan then, not with hatred but with something heavier. "You made me feel small," she said softly. "Like my work, my business, my safety didn't matter." Evan's jaw quivered. A rare flicker of remorse crossed his features, but he was far past the point where apologies could mend anything. Judge Judy leaned back, fingers steepled. "Miss Reyes," she asked, "why didn't you come forward sooner? Before the damage escalated?" Marisol hesitated. Her throat tightened. Her gaze dropped to the floor. Then she whispered, "Because someone told me not to." A ripple of shock cut through the room. Judy sat forward. "Someone? Who?" Two. One. Marisol lifted her eyes, dark, steady, resolute. "A city employee, someone working under the mayor's office." Evan's heart stopped. Marisol exhaled shakily, and they said, Evan wasn't someone ordinary citizens should cause trouble for. The courtroom froze. The courtroom went still, so still that even the hum of the air vents seemed to pause, as Marisol's words landed with the force of a stone breaking calm water. Judge Judy leaned forward ever so slightly, enough to signal that the foundation of the case had just shifted. "A city employee?" she repeated. "Working under whose authority?" Marisol's eyes flicked toward Evan. They didn't say directly, but the implication was impossible to miss. Evan's stomach dropped. His face, once bold with inherited arrogance, now reflected something closer to dread. The cameras tightened around him, capturing the moment he realized this was no longer just about a damaged storefront. This was about systemic corruption pointing straight toward him. Judge Judy gestured for Marisol to continue. "Tell us exactly what happened." Marisol swallowed. "The morning after the note showed up, my phone rang. Unknown number. When I answered, the voice told me they were calling from the mayor's office. They said it was in my best interest to stop posting about the incident." The room erupted in murmurs. "And," Marisol continued, her voice trembling but firm, "they told me that if I filed anything official, there would be consequences for my business. Surprise inspections, delays in permits, things that could shut me down for weeks." The camera cut sharply to Evan. His jaw clenched, anger mixing with fear. "I didn't call anyone. I didn't tell anyone to threaten her." Judy raised a hand, silencing him. "We'll find out who made the call. But first, Miss Reyes, how can you be certain the threat was connected to Mr. Hollis?" Marisol breathed out. "Because the caller said his full name, and said, I quote, 'He's under enough stress. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.'" A collective gasp swept through the gallery. Evan staggered back a step, palms sweating. "I swear, Judge, I never asked anyone to do that. I didn't even know she got a call." Judy didn't look at him yet. She was studying Marisol with a piercing, meticulous stillness. "Did you save the call log, Ms. Reyes?" "One." Marisol nodded. "Yes. I didn't know if it would matter, but something told me to." The bailiff stepped forward as she handed over a printed copy. Judy scanned it, one eyebrow rising. "This number belongs to a city-issued device," she announced, "assigned to a property compliance officer." The courtroom buzzed with shock. Evan's voice cracked. "I don't even know anyone in that department." Judy finally turned to him. Her tone sliced the air cleanly. "Whether you do or not, Mr. Hollis, someone believed protecting you was worth endangering this woman's livelihood." She motioned to the clerk. Bring in the next witness. Evan blinked. Next what? Next witness. What? But before he could protest further, the side door opened, and a man in a wrinkled shirt and city ID badge stepped inside. He looked exhausted, haunted, even like someone who had been waiting for this moment far longer than he wanted to admit. Reese's nodded. Gone. Reese's nodded. Gone. We're at very for the gone. And Reese's nodded. Gone. The cameras zoomed in on his trembling hands. Marisol stiffened. Evan's breath caught. Judy's eyes narrowed. The man swallowed hard, his voice barely audible as he approached the stand. I need to tell the truth, he said, about the call, and about who told me to make it. The man's fingers shook so violently that even the microphone picked up the faint tapping of his nail against the stand. He wasn't just nervous, he was unraveling. He cleared his throat, though the sound came out thin, brittle. The courtroom watched him like a suspenseful scene, frozen mid-breath. His city-issued badge reflected the harsh fluorescent lights, proof of the authority he misused, or was forced to. Judge Judy spoke first. State your name. Gregory Madsen, a whispered. Property Compliance Division. The title alone made the gallery buzz. The very department Marisol feared would inspect her into closure. Judy leaned back. Mr. Madsen, do you understand you're under oath? Yes, he breathed, wiping his forehead. And I need to fix what I did. Evan clenched the edge of his table. Judge, I've never seen this man before in my life. Gregory's eyes darted toward him, fearful, apologetic. That's true. He didn't ask me directly. He paused, his voice trembling. But someone else did. The air thinned. Every camera in the room silently adjusted. Who? Judy asked. Gregory swallowed. My supervisor. He said there was concern from the mayor's office about a potentially damaging complaint coming from a local business. His voice cracked. He told me to make the call, to warn Miss Reyes. Marisol's heart clenched. Evan's face lost its last trace of color. And you complied? Judy pressed. Gregory nodded, shame soaking into his posture. I did, because if I refused, I'd lose my job. Maybe more. He clenched his fists. They made it sound like Evan was untouchable. Like our job wasn't enforcement, just protection. For him, Judy's brows lifted. Protection? From accountability? And Gregory's voice softened into agony. Yes, Your Honor. They said complaints against him were politically sensitive, that it was better to discourage them early. A wave of disgust murmured through the courtroom. Evan erupted. But I didn't tell anyone to do that. I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't. Judy snapped. Sit down, Mr. Hollis. The command was so sharp the entire room flinched. Gregory continued, holding the edge of the stand to steady himself. I didn't want to make the call. I hated it. But I did it because, his voice fell to a whisper, because the mayor's office controls our renewal contracts. If you cross them, you're done. And who? Judy asked, voice low and cold. Gregory's breath hitched. He looked terrified. Finally, he managed. My direct supervisor, Harold Trent. But he said the request came from higher up, from someone who said Evan was under stress and didn't need more trouble. Evan's heart thudded audibly. I don't even know Harold Trent. I would never. Gregory cut in, suddenly emotional. I believe you. I don't think you even know half of what people did to protect you. His voice cracked. But that protection hurt people. I hurt Miss Reyes because I trusted a system that wasn't about fairness. The courtroom fell utterly silent. Even Evan didn't know how to react. Was he being defended? Accused? Both? Judge Judy fixed her gaze on him. Mr. Hollis, it appears your privilege extends further than even you understood. Evan's breath grew uneven. Judy turned to Gregory. Mr. Madsen, do you have any evidence of this order being issued? Gregory's trembling hand lifted a crumpled email printout. I saved everything. Gregory's crumpled email sat on the evidence table like a bomb waiting for a spark. But Judge Judy wasn't looking at the email, she was looking at Evan, whose confidence had thinned to a trembling thread. The courtroom's silence was the kind that vibrated like the air itself was bracing for impact. Judge Judy examined the printout, her eyes narrowing as they traced the bolded subject line. Sensitive. Complaint handle off record. Her jaw tightened. "Mr. Madsen," she said, "this email indicates you were instructed to intervene on Mr. Hollis's behalf." Gregory nodded miserably. "Yes, to call Miss Reyes, to stop her from escalating things. And yet," Judy continued, "there's a second attachment. A bank notification." A stiff ripple traveled through the gallery. Gregory looked down, shame pooling beneath his eyelids. I didn't want to bring that part up." Judy's voice sharpened. "You are under oath. Bring it up." The man exhaled shakily. He pulled a second paper from his jacket, this one crisp, unwrinkled, guarded like a secret talisman. "I received a deposit," Gregory whispered. $300. Labeled as a consulting fee. "I don't receive consulting fees. Ever." The camera cut instantly to Evan. He blinked slow, disbelieving. Horrified. "I didn't pay you. I don't even know you." Gregory nodded quickly. "It didn't come directly from you. It came from a third-party account. But the memo line," he swallowed. "The memo line had your initials. E.H. A wave of shock burst across the courtroom. Judy turned to Evan. "Care to explain?" He shook his head violently. "I don't know anything about that. I don't send money to random city employees. Why would I do that?" Judy's expression sharpened into a blade. "Because sometimes, Mr. Hollis, the people who protect you leave fingerprints you never intended." Evan's breath grew erratic. "This is insane. Someone's trying to set me up." Gregory's voice cut through the panic. "I didn't think it was a bribe at first. I told myself it was just messed up paperwork. But when Harold told me not to mention the call to anyone, I realized." His voice cracked. "Someone wanted me paid for obedience." The judge interlocked her fingers, gaze unwavering. "Mr. Madsen, did you respond to the deposit?" "No." He shook his head. "I deleted the email chain, but I saved the bank notification. Something didn't feel right." He glanced at Marisol. "And she didn't deserve to be threatened." Evan's hands trembled against the table. Every lie he had leaned on, every act of inherited immunity, every assumption that the world would bend for him began to collapse like a faulty scaffold. Judy tapped the deposit slip. "This, Mr. Hollis, is suspicious at best, damning at worst." "I swear," Evan said, voice cracking. "I never asked anyone to pay him. I never asked anyone to call her. I just wanted the whole thing to go away. And that," Judy replied coldly, "is exactly the problem." The air thickened. Evan flinched as if struck. Judge Judy lifted the sealed folder one more time. "Mr. Hollis, we haven't yet addressed the last document in this file." Evan swallowed hard, dread crawling up his spine. "Last document?" Judy nodded, eyes gleaming with something unspoken but heavy. "This final page," she said, tapping it once, "reveals something about your past that reframes everything we've heard." Her fingers reached for the paper. The courtroom held its breath. The courtroom didn't move. Not a cough. Not a whisper. Just the echo of Marisol's quiet. "I am drifting through the air, like the aftershock of a quake no one was prepared for." Evan stood at the defendant's table, shoulders slumped, gaze unfocused. The fluorescent lights washed over him. No longer flattering or neutral, they exposed him. Every flaw, every fear, every crack in the armor he'd spent years polishing glimmered under their unforgiving glare. For the first time, the camera caught something raw in his expression. A young man realizing he'd been the villain in stories he never bothered to listen to. Judy allowed the silence to breathe, her hands folded, her eyes distant but piercing. "We are entering the final stage of this hearing," she announced. "And before I rule, each party will speak one last time." Evan's chest tightened. This was it, no more shields, no more political buffers, No more blind privilege to stand behind. She turned to Marisol. Ms. Reyes, you may address the court. Marisol rose, slowly, like someone carrying a burden. She had finally learned how to lift, not easily but firmly. The camera followed her in a smooth close-up, catching the faint shimmer of dried tears and the new steadiness replacing them. When this began, she said, voice softer than the room deserved, I didn't want revenge, I just wanted to be heard. Her hands pressed gently against the podium. My father tried to protect me. He tried to stand up for me when I was too young to understand why some people could hurt others without consequence. Her eyes shifted toward Evan. And I tried to believe you grew out of who you were back then. That the boy who humiliated me wasn't the man who crashed into my storefront. Her voice broke slightly. But today, hearing everything, I realized something. There won. She inhaled shakily. You never grew out of it. You grew around it. The gallery felt those words in their bones. You learned how to smile through entitlement. How to wrap your actions in excuses. How to use your father's power as padding so you wouldn't feel any impact. She paused. I was you one. She paused. I was you one flyer in Pasuk. So Sipli and flyers you one flyers Sipli intentional. I was one flyers you one flyers. But the people you hit, we felt it. Evan's throat constricted. His eyes glistened. Marisol looked down for a moment, steadying herself. I'm tired of feeling powerless. I'm tired of being told my life, my business, my safety matter less than someone else's comfort. She lifted her chin. So yes, Your Honor, I want justice. Not because I hate him, but because I deserve to stop being afraid. The courtroom trembled with emotion, quiet, potent, unavoidable. Evan opened his mouth, but Judy raised a hand, stopping him. You will speak, she said, but not yet. Her tone shifted, no longer sharp, but firm with finality. Mr. Hollis, you are witnessing the impact of actions you dismissed, ignored, or never bothered to confront. Your response will be part of the record and of your reckoning. Recorded in the fretter, Evan swallowed, voice barely audible. I don't know what to say. Then think, Judy replied. Because your words matter now more than they ever have. He stood there, shaking. The collapse no longer a sudden crash, but a slow, painful, inevitable crumbling of someone finally seeing the rubble he made. Judy tapped her gavel lightly, not to silence, but to transition. Mr. Hollis, she said, it's time. Tell this court why you deserve to be believed. At all. Evan looked up, breath unsteady, tears threatening, and for the first time, he had no defense. Evan opened his mouth, then closed it like a man drowning who can't decide whether to fight the water or finally let himself sink. For a long moment, the courtroom existed in a suspended kind of agony. Evan Hollis stood there, a figure stripped bare of name, lineage, and entitlement. His fingers curled over the podium as if gripping it would keep him from falling apart entirely. The camera captured every tremble, every breath too fast to control. Every flicker of a boy raised to believe consequences were optional. Judge Judy watched him with unblinking precision, her expression neither sympathetic nor cruel, just expectant, waiting for truth to rise out of him, the way pressure draws confession from stone. Evan inhaled sharply, voice barely a whisper. I don't know how to explain myself without sounding like everything you already think I am. Judy didn't respond. She didn't need to. The room itself pressed him forward. He swallowed. My whole life, people cleaned things up for me. He blinked, eyes reddening. I thought they were helping me. I didn't realize they were hurting everyone around me. The gallery murmured, but softly, more stunned than judgmental. Evan pressed a shaking hand to his forehead. I didn't know about Miss Reyes' father writing that letter. I didn't know city employees were being ordered to protect me. I didn't know people were scared of me because of my last name. His voice cracked. I didn't know I mattered enough to damage people. Marisol's eyes softened, not forgiveness. Not yet, but something keener and sadder. Recognition of a fragile, human truth. Evan looked at her. Really looked. Really looked. When I hit your cafe, I was drunk, stupid, showing off. His voice trembled. But I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that the city would fix it, that it wasn't really my responsibility. His throat tightened. He wasn't really my respond, but it was. And everything after that was worse because I couldn't force myself to admit it. He shook his head, tears falling freely now. I thought if I ignored it, it would disappear, like everything else in my life has when I wanted it to. A hollow laugh broke from him. But this didn't disappear. You didn't disappear. Marisol blinked back tears of her own. Evan's words spilled faster now, cracking under their own weight. I didn't know how much I hurt you in high school. I didn't know what people did behind me or for me or because of me. I didn't know what I'd become because nobody ever told me no. Not once. Not until today. Not until today. Not until today. Not until today. He turned to Judge Judy, collapsing emotionally in real time. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect sympathy. I don't want to be this person anymore. The courtroom exhaled, some in pity, others in relief, a few in righteous satisfaction. Judy lifted her chin, studying him with the sharpness of someone who has seen thousands fall apart before finally standing up. Mr. Hollis, she said, tone firm but not unkind. Growth begins where excuses end. Evan nodded, tears dripping onto the polished wood. I understand. Judge Judy tapped her gavel lightly, not to reprimand, but to seal the moment. Then it's time, she said, voice steady as judgment itself. This court will now deliver its ruling. The room froze. If you were sitting in this courtroom, would you see Evan's collapse as justice or the beginning of redemption? Share your thoughts. Judge Judy lifted her gavel with the calm certainty of someone who had weighed every truth, every lie, every wound, and every shard of accountability laid bare before her. The courtroom held its breath, an audience suspended between justice and consequence. Evan Hollis stood straighter than before, but not out of pride. This time, he stood because he understood fully, painfully, that this moment was his to face alone. Judge Judy placed both hands on the bench, grounding the room as she spoke. This case, she began, is not merely about a storefront. It is not about a single reckless act. It is about a pattern, one built on arrogance, dismissed responsibilities, and the misuse of influence. Evan swallowed, shoulders trembling. Judy continued, her tone even but weighted with purpose. Mr. Hollis, you grew up believing that consequences were negotiable, that accountability was optional, that your last name could erase harm. She leaned forward. That ends today. A whisper drifted through the gallery, shock mixed with relief. Turning to Marisol, Judy's voice softened, just slightly. Miss Reyes, you showed remarkable strength in bringing this case forward. You chose truth over fear. And for that, this court not only hears you, it stands with you. With you half to the way. With you half to the way. With you halved. With you halved. With you half to the card. With you halved. With you half to the way. With you. Marisol's eyes glistened. Judge Judy lifted the repair invoices, tapping them once. Mr. Hollis, you will pay full restitution for the damage to the cafe. Every dollar. Restitution. Our ludogram. Evan nodded. Wordless. You will also cover lost income for the weeks Ms. Reyes was unable to operate her business. Another nod. His eyes shimmered with the weight of deserved consequence. And third, Judy continued, voice sharpening, you will fund the complete security upgrade for Ms. Reyes' establishment. Cameras, reinforced windows, lighting everything she requires to feel safe again. Marisol gasped softly. Gratitude flickered in her expression, mingled with a bittersweet ache. As for the intimidation attempts, Judy said, shifting her gaze back to Evan, the court cannot levy criminal charges, but the evidence presented today will be forwarded to the appropriate state authorities. Evan's breath hitched. This wasn't just embarrassment anymore. This was real, permanent. Furthermore, she added, tonight any involvement from city employees in shielding your behavior will be investigated thoroughly. The cameras caught Evan's reaction, a mixture of guilt, fear, and something new. Humility. Judy sat back. The protection you once took for granted has collapsed. What stands in its place is the person you choose to become after this ruling. Evan's chin trembled. I understand, Your Honor. Judy nodded slowly. I hope you do. Because this judgment isn't meant to break you. It is meant to rebuild what should have been formed years ago. Accountability. A long silence settled between them, a rare, fragile connection in the courtroom. Then she lifted her gavel. For the damages, for the distress, for the pattern of harm, ignored, but not forgotten, this court rules fully in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Reyes. The gavel struck. The sound echoed like a moral chord vibrating through the room. Marisol closed her eyes, exhaling a breath she had carried for years. Liam placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Gregory wiped his eyes discreetly. Even some spectators felt tears sting. Evan stepped back, hollowed out yet strangely relieved, like someone who had finally seen his own reflection clearly for the first time. Judge Judy concluded softly, but firmly, let this case serve as a reminder. Privilege may shield you for a season, but truth endures far longer. The camera lingered on Marisol as she stepped out of the courtroom, sunlight flooding across her face. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was someone who fought and won. And behind her, Evan watched her go, knowing this judgment was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a better one if he chose to make it so. Justice isn't loud, it's steady, and it arrives the moment arrogance finally meets accountability.